Welcome to Backstreet Gossip, news talk, current events, and political commentary with your host, Uncle Ronnie. And now here's your host, Uncle Ronnie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm probably not your uncle, but I am Ron Lutter, so I just wanted to straighten that out because everybody calls me Uncle Ronnie, and my nephews are all in they're in Texas. Tonight, we don't have Mr. Ray Michaels with us, but we do have Liz Harris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And it's really interesting. Ray is what we call on assignment. And he's working on some other things that he's been dealing with over the last year, and this is kind of a mandatory thing. But do you know Lou Ruggiero? Do you remember him? He was on Channel 10. He was one of the anchors on Channel 10. And he always used to say, well, I'm not going to be around this weekend. I'm going to be on assignment.
Oh.
Well, I had a boat back then, and so on weekends I would go out to the lake. And I pulled into this little cove, and all of a sudden there's a boat there, and it's Lou Ruggiero on this boat. And the name of the boat is On Assignment. So I thought that was very, very creative.
That
it always
was
sounded like he
creative.
was working, and he's out there lounging around in a cove in a boat. So the other thing that could be making history here in Arizona, they say we have about a 70% chance of rain, which probably means it will not rain
Wait, do you mean tonight?
tonight, or
Do you mean I have to drive home in the rain?
I wouldn't count on it. Any rate, there's a lot of things going on in Arizona, and we're probably the focal point of what's happening in America right now is going on right down at our Veterans Memorial Coliseum, and we have. I don't know if you remember the very first time we had Liz on the show. She was running as a candidate for political office. Now, this is a woman that I have watched from blooming from a candidate to perhaps the strongest advocate for the honesty and integrity of our elections here in Arizona. And Liz, I just want to tell you, I'm very, very proud to be called a friend of yours, and
Thank you.
you have worked so hard. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I couldn't keep up with you.
Yeah,
And,
it's God inspired.
So there are things going on, and this is like a chess game. Everybody's check, point, counterpoint. So, and I know there's a lot going on today, and I think we change judges about every day here.
Yeah.
Everybody's suing. So
Changing
tell us what.
judges like underwear.
Oh, I don't think a lot of people even change that fast. I mean, these guys, I think yesterday we had one judge recuse himself, another one come on.
Yeah.
And he should have recused himself, but we'll let you talk about it.
Yeah.
Tell us what in the world is going on down there. Every time I turn around, there's lawyers that there are probably more lawyers right now than there are people that are actually counting ballots and doing the work that needs to be done down there.
Right. So what happened was on Thursday, there was a lawsuit filed, and it wasn't a surprise. Everyone was expecting a lawsuit. But what I want to say is that how come when the Board of Supervisors did their logic and accuracy test with those EAC certified auditors, how come we didn't throw on a bunch of lawsuits?
Because there's two theories there. One, we're not picky-unish. If you don't know what that word picky-unish means, I don't either, but it means we don't play with little details as the other side does. That's one. And the other thing is, quite frankly, as a lifelong Republican, we just don't seem to have the stamina or the stomach for getting involved and playing the game as a hardball game, is my opinion. And I remember there was a baseball player by the name of Drysdale. I don't know if you remember him.
No.
He was a pitcher, and he used to call himself the king of the home plate. And I'll tell you, if he got up there and a guy was a good hitter, and he was crunching a little close to the plate, he used to dust him off. Dusting off means he'd throw a ball right in, almost hit him, back him off, tell him, I'm the boss here. You're not going to hit this ball. This ball may hit you, but you're not going to hit the ball. And I think the Republican Party is into that mode where we just do not seem to want to play hardball, and we should. That's my opinion. You could disagree, but audience can disagree. That's my opinion.
All right, so the lawsuit that was filed on Thursday was essentially, many of you know, it was Corporate Commissioner Steve Gallardo as a qualified elector. So he filed this as an individual, not as, an official. And
let me just back
go
off
ahead.
for just a minute.
Sure.
Meaning a qualified elector, and that is the Electoral College. In the United States, we vote for electors. We do not vote for the president. We vote for electors. And he was a Democrat elector and an elected official, but in the capacity, he was an elector.
Correct. Okay, and then it was also the other plaintiff was the Arizona Democrat Party and Arizona Political Party and Political Action Committee. Okay, so those were the plaintiffs, and then the defendants in the case were Karen Fann, Senate President, and then we had Warren Peterson and Ken Bennett and Cyber Ninjas. And Cyber Ninjas is basically the overriding company conducting the audit down at the Coliseum right now. So those were the defendants. And then this case was heard. Many of us watched it live, and it was heard by Honorable Chris Corey. All right, so that case basically, many of you watched it, but that was the one where the plaintiffs would have had to put up $1 million bond in order to stop the audit. And I'm going to be honest, we all thought the audit was stopping. We froze, we panicked.
I did too.
And I'm going to let you know, regardless of what party you are, that there were hundreds of thousands of people in Arizona that fought for this forensic audit. So if you're one of the people that are trying to stop this, I'm just letting you know there are hundreds of thousands of people that actually they were such activists in terms of making sure that this audit happened, because we're being told that this is the third audit. As far as I'm concerned, this is the first audit.
Yes.
Because this is we're doing a forensic audit, and that's what needed to be done from day one.
Liz, as most of our listeners know, I've spent most of my life as an auditor, okay? Not a sham auditor, an auditor. And the one thing that, the first thing that they did, that the county had, these people were not certified by anybody other than an organization that was established by President Obama back several years ago. They were not certified by a certified auditor organization like the National Association of Certified Public Accountants, somebody that's what they do. So we had what many people call a sham audit. It was not an audit at all.
Right. I completely agree with that. But mainstream media tells the general public we've had 2 audits. So if you talk to, if you go up to anyone on the street, they're going to believe that we had 2 audits, and they're not, and then they may or may not know that something else is going on. But, again, mainstream media is trying to set the narrative that this is a sham audit, that it lacks security, that it's being done by right-wing extremists. We have this entire narrative, and that we're wasting taxpayer money. And that's the narrative that all of our large stations
you're
put out.
Right. Media has become, I think, very, very lax. They don't want to do their homework. You've got a lot of people out there that the word, words actually meant something as I grew up, and I know with you because I know your background. Words were meaningful. Words were very specific to something. Audit. An audit was a very specific thing. And now we use the term audit just means anybody that's looking at something. Well, let's audit this, let's audit that. No, those are not audits because you use the word.
Right.
There's a process.
And so then the other issue I feel very strongly that we have with journalists is when they go through their curriculum at either college or university, it's very leftist based, and that it's not fair and honest reporting anymore, where they basically give both sides of the story. It always seems to be one-sided.
Well, there was I think Fox used this at one time, although they don't use it anymore, and that is, we report, you decide.
Yeah, fair and balanced, right?
Fair balance.
I remember Hannity and Combs.
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I do. I do. And this is one of the problems that we have. Again, words mean things. The security issues that they're talking about. You've been down there a lot.
Actually, no. I'm staying away from the Coliseum.
Well, I saw you earlier there.
No, I wasn't there.
You weren't?
I have not been there since
Well, I
the
saw
audit
you
started.
on your. I thought you were doing some of your things from there. I guess you were doing them from your
I'm
home.
live streaming from.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm
Okay.
showing the live stream. The reason I am not there, it's very intense. I mean, I'm going to be working the canvas element of this audit, so I don't want to mix the two at all. So I have made a concerted effort not to go down there, although I'm dying to go down there and to show footage of how well the Arizona Rangers are actually protecting the facility.
God bless those guys. I've known a lot of people that have been down there, from our friend and sponsor here, Mr. Morrison, all the way to some of the Rangers and so forth. This is one of the tightest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And our good friend Josh Bernstein had even suggested that we use National Guard troops to guard that facility.
We should. I don't know why Governor Ducey. I mean, I would say 25 troops on the exterior. I don't 25. We can't afford.
But you know, the
25.
redeeming value is the Department of Public Safety headquarters is within a block of that facility.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great to know.
Yeah,
Fast
yeah.
response
Their
time.
Their compound is right there on Encanto, and Encanto is the north street of the facility there. So they're within a block, and they could be there very shortly if there was any trouble. Believe me, they do come with riot gear and everything else. So I don't know. I've heard that there were a lot of people that have come in from out of town, potential troublemakers. What have you heard?
Yeah, we've heard that too. I haven't seen any of them.
I haven't either, and I'm hoping that does not take place, because one of the things that our viewers need to know, especially those that aren't in Arizona, is we have some very, very wonderful Second Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. So if you start messing with some people that are Second Amendment advocates and carry weapons, you wouldn't want to mess with them.
Right.
Because they're liable to say, I thought my life was in danger, and make a move that would be tragic for everybody.
Right. But if you do see anything suspicious, please do report it to authorities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, Liz, you have been at this for so long. We have had you on the show when we couldn't even see you. You had books piled up this high, and you were hiding behind all these.
I almost brought them
petitions
tonight to show how much larger the pile came, but my arms were a little sore, and it would take a lot of muscle to carry
She
them.
needed a pickup truck.
Yeah, to carry all
Tell
the
us about,
affidavits.
you have had just countless numbers of people that have helped you. You have been a miracle worker in this vein.
Well, thank you. But it's not me. It's the people of Arizona. And we've actually had people come from out of state to help us with the canvassing as well. And all it is you sign up at itsmellsfunny.com, and then we send you an email. The email comes from me, Liz Harris. A lot of people say, I didn't get it. Well, check your spam. But I do send the email out, responding within about 24 to 48 hours. And then when you're ready to canvass, you let me know. And then all I do is I set you up on the app, and we send you a training video, and then you can go out canvassing. And it's really simple. We never, ever, ever ask a person when we go to a door who they voted for. Instead, it's just, did you vote? What method did you use? And did you receive any extra ballots? And as we talk about these lawsuits, a bunch of the threatening letters that came out prior to the suit being filed is that the canvassers were intimidating voters and breaking state and federal laws. And I'm going to let you know that is a complete fallacy. In fact, 9 out of 10 people who answered their door were actually thankful that the canvasser was there, and sometimes they even asked the canvasser, why weren't you here in November? Like, why did it take so long for you to get here? They're very happy to answer questions, and they really want to tell their story. And it doesn't matter, it's nonpartisan. Both sides want to tell their story. And then if someone says, I prefer not to answer, we smile, we thank them, and we go on to the next residence. It's that simple.
You know, early on, I had heard some of this nonsense where they were saying that this is the left was saying this, that there was intimidation, that they had no business, this was private. You know, we still live in America, And you have the right to say, no, I don't want to share this with you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Goodbye.
And we're okay with that. We're
Yeah.
So there is a concern that they're going to try to shut down this canvassing effort as it relates to the audit. And I just hope our attorneys are strong enough to fight that.
Now, who are the attorneys here?
Okay, so the attorney for the Senate is, I hope I pronounce it right, but the attorney for the Arizona Senate is Cory Longhofer.
Longhofer. Yeah.
Okay, and then the attorney for Cyber Ninjas is attorney Alex Culloden.
Oh, yeah. Alex has been on the show many times. I think
Great.
he might have been on there one time with you, was he?
No, I
Okay.
wasn't on the show
Yeah,
with him.
Alex is just a remarkable young man. We've
Sure.
always enjoyed having him here, and I called him yesterday. You know, we were at that dinner Friday or Saturday, and I called him on the way there, and he was busy. And it was really kind of interesting. About 10:30, 11:30 last night, I finally got a response from him. I thought, 11:30 on a Sunday night, you're responding to my phone call. But that's how busy he is.
So, so what happened in terms of timeline? So, on Friday, most of us had heard that the Democrats weren't going to put up that $1 million bond. But what happened was Cory Longhofer actually went and filed an appeal to the Supreme Court. And I'm going to explain this in my layman's terms, and you probably would appreciate me explaining it in layman's terms.
Because a lot of people don't understand
Right.
that.
No, and like these lawsuits, this is like, I didn't become a lawyer for a reason. Okay, a lot of reading, a lot of legalese. Okay, but anyway, Cory Longhofer filed with the Supreme Court, and what he was basically asking for is for the manual for the auditors to be a sealed document. And I think the rationale on that is that a lot of these procedures, it's proprietary. It wasn't to mask anything from the public, and of course this whole thing got spun by the leftist media that what we're looking to do is to mask the results, and that's not true at all. So then the Supreme Court justice that heard it was Justice Clint Bullock,
Yes.
and he basically ruled that the lower court judge, who was Chris Corey, basically his ruling stands, and then it was kicked back to the lower court pretty much. So the hearing was supposed to be today at 11 a.m., but then we had yesterday.
Bum, bum, bum.
And what happened
More
yesterday
mystery.
was Alex Culloden, I was told it was about 4 p.m., realized that the judge had a conflict of interest because of someone working somewhere. I mean, the details are kind of crazy. But so the judge wound up recusing himself.
Yes, and then this morning, well, I guess the guy was appointed. This was Daniel Martin, is the new judge.
Yep.
And he's got some very interesting background to
Right.
him
Dating back 2004.
and should recuse himself as
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
Tell us about that.
All right, so what I know is that there's a relationship to Perkins Coie that dates back to 2004.
And explain who Perkins Coie is.
So Perkins Coie is one of those wonderful firms. So, I can say so many things. Maybe you want to say it. Maybe you're more comfortable saying it. But that's related to a lot of political figures. And I don't want to be suicided. Is it okay to say that? So I'll let Uncle Ronnie is a little older. So
wow.
yeah.
Put me on the
but
spot.
they are allegedly related to. Go ahead, tell the
Well,
world.
they do a lot of work for the Democrat Party,
Mm-hmm.
and probably more so than anybody. And they have an individual who does deal with the political aspects, and of course you know the name. It's Mark Elias. You've heard that name before. And Mark Elias is a remarkable political figure, very liberal, went to Eastern schools. He is also an attorney and went to all of the Eastern liberal universities, has good credits for being an extreme leftist, and I use the word leftist as opposed to liberal. And I'm gonna give the detail here because I want people to know what my opinion of a leftist is versus a liberal. Liberals love America and they will fight for America. Leftists will fight for an idea that's not necessarily an American idea, but they fight for things that do not in my opinion, do not support the American way of life. Now, when I say that, let me just go into this. It's what you're fighting for as well, and that is the integrity and the honesty of the election. And as Brakey, John Brakey said, we all have the right to vote. Secret. Absolutely. It's guaranteed that we have a secret ballot. But there is no guarantee that our counting is, and it should be open. It should be open to the public. And therein lies one of the main differences here between COI. They think everything needs to be under the table. You don't count in front of everybody because, oh my, God forbid that you'll know how I voted. Well, I don't know how they do that. Having been an auditor all my life, there's no way that I would go and find out how anybody voted because the envelope, if you voted early, you sign the affidavit, which is the envelope, and it's separated from the ballot.
Yes, it is.
Nobody knows how that ballot, how they get back together.
It's
so you could
once
never
again
identify
a
that.
false narrative once again.
And so this is one of the things, and this is why I say leftists versus liberals. Now, do you know John Brakey?
Yes.
Okay. Now, John is a liberal.
Definitely.
He calls himself a progressive, but really
yeah.
he's liberal, very liberal. And I love the man to pieces because he's upfront, he's honest, he loves America, he loves the honesty, and we all do. If we lost the election, honestly, I can live with it. I cannot live with the idea that the election had some mischievous and my vote was canceled.
And I mean, John Brakey wants election integrity.
Yes, and there's the difference. These other people don't care about the integrity. They just say, well, we want to keep it secret. And I'm sorry. If you look at the way our country was founded, and we had Randy Miller, I think you know
Yes.
Randy, on last Wednesday, and we were talking about the responsibilities of the federal government versus state governments. And, of course, H.R. 1 is trying to take all that away. Arizona has its own process, as every state does, because the federal government is not responsible for elections. The states are.
Correct.
And who better represents the state than the state Senate? I mean, you don't get much higher than the state Senate. I mean, the governor, but the governor is only one person, and he's the executive branch and not the legislative branch. The legislature makes the laws.
Correct.
So it's altogether, as Lincoln said, it's altogether fitting and proper that the legislature look at this process. Because if there is a problem, they need to know about it and fix it.
Correct.
Because this is our country, Liz. You and I own it.
Yes.
As everybody here owns this country. And by golly, we want to make sure that everything that happens here is on the up and up for the benefit of all Americans.
That is correct.
So, at any rate, back to Perkins Coie.
Right. So anyway, my Perkins Coie is also related to a lot of political figures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you, you probably know this, but I'm going to tell our audience. Perkins Coie is the one that started back in 2016. They started the rumor that Donald Trump was taking money from the Russians. Do you remember that? That was the attorneys for Perkins. That was Mark Elias.
Okay, I honestly didn't know
Yeah, that's where it started with Perkins Coie.
Wonderful.
And so they don't have a good track record, in my humble opinion. I say in my humble opinion because that way you can't be sued if it's only your opinion.
All right, but you can still be suicided, right?
So, at any rate, that's one of the things that's going on there now. Okay, so tomorrow they're supposed to have another hearing. Now, the counting's still going on, is it not?
Oh, the counting is still going on, yeah. And you can watch that counting all day long at www.azaudit.org. Yeah, that's it.
And I have not watched it, but I know a lot of people have, and they're somewhat fascinated. And the good news is, as you were telling me Saturday at the dinner that we attended, that you're looking for a third shift now.
I don't know if we're supposed to let the cat out of the bag on that.
Okay, we're letting it just two shifts.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No, so since Uncle Ronnie said it. So you will see, I'm pretty sure they already have everyone now, but they have, you're going to see the pace pick up, and you're going to see it pretty much round the clock. And that's just to guarantee that it's going to get done.
And we have one lady here in the audience that wants to be of assistance to you.
Wonderful.
And we'll talk about that after the show.
Okay, perfect.
But no, the thing that's really so important here is that it is the people of the state of Arizona that are actually performing many of these duties. You know, we do have these professional auditors, and I want to tell you, they all are certified auditors. They are not just people that came in off the street and said, I'm an auditor, I've been an auditor, and I've been an auditor, but I'm not certified to do some of the work that they're doing.
Right. And they have the technical expertise in the various capacities to find what needs to be found.
For instance, one of the things that I think we dealt with this with Senator Sonny Borelli, and that is when you get your ballot in an envelope, early ballots, the ballots are folded. They're pretty big ballots. I mean,
Yeah.
But they're folded, and they straighten these ballots out and they run them through tabulators, and if the ballots have never had a crease in them, and they were run through the tabulators as early ballots that were received by mail, we got a problem.
Absolutely.
How did those ballots get mailed in that are like this, but the envelope's
19
a number
inches.
10 envelope? So they're checking things like that. It may sound a little silly, but it's true. And in many cases, we've heard rumor, and that's all I want to say. It's rumor. I don't know if it's true, but we'll find out.
Yep.
And one of the things, Liz, that I wanted to tell people, and I wrote to the Board of Supervisors early on about this, and it still bothers me. Audit, they kept saying, well, there's no evidence. You don't have evidence to have an audit. Audits are not about evidence. Audits are about compliance to the law.
Right.
And you may find evidence as you audit, but you don't need evidence to audit. So the whole argument here that you don't have evidence that would require an audit, it's not needed. We're looking at process.
Yeah.
And it just troubles me to hear grown people that are elected officials talk this way. Now, I want to get into something else. And, you know, we always say, golly, there's been some wrongdoing in the last 4 years. And we know that a lot, you know, with these, the things that they were charging against the president and the people that were coming in and making statements, and they had to have secrecy. You didn't know who they were, although everybody knew who they were, but we can't tell their names, and they've got to have total anonymity, and they can't, that's a big word, and they can't do all of these things, and you can't charge them with anything. And, you know, we go from Comey all the way down to the attorney generals and so forth and so on, with total and absolute nonsense. The FISA things, what was that document called? It was a warrant or something like that. Whatever, I don't know exactly what the word was, but it was
like
a FISA
feels
warrants
like
or
a
whatever.
million years ago.
Yeah, and what happened? We now know that they were all phony. Mm-hmm. Where are the people that should have gone to jail?
It's a double standard. It doesn't
Exactly.
happen.
And that's what I'm afraid of here. Why are they fighting so hard to shut everything down? This is my question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you have an opinion.
I definitely have an opinion. It's because not all people are honest and ethical. And it's a harsh word, but there's a lot of corruption that happens at the very, very top tiers of the government. And I think when we're done with this forensic audit in Arizona, or Maricopa County. I think we need to do the other 14 counties. And I just want to let everyone know, I was actually copied on an email where there's a red county. I'm not going to say which one it is in Arizona, but it was basically a message. I don't know if it was directed to me, but I was copied on it, that everything in their county was perfectly fine to back off any type of, activism on this county should get a forensic audit because all of their candidates won. So I replied, well, since when was Mark Kelly one of your candidates? Now, this was to obviously a Republican
Mark Kelly
organization.
was the man who ran for the United States Senate as a Democrat.
Right. But, that's the type of thing that happens. Now, I'm not saying that anyone in that county had any issues, but my question to them is, this particular county, we actually saw as evidence of some really crazy stuff in the data. And that's why we were pretty much, there's stuff in the data in every county throughout Arizona, throughout the country that really needs to be looked at. And that's why we do that canvassing. And we see these things, and then just to have people come back, shoot back, there's nothing to see here. Whenever I hear from a politician or any type of leader or the opposition, there's nothing to see here. Just an outright, there's nothing to see here. My antenna automatically goes up.
I have a lot of difficulty with the concept, and I've used this term before, I think, on the air, and that is there's no disinfectant that's better than sunshine and fresh air. And these documents need to be looked at. There's no question. Even if there's just an error that was just a human error without any attempt to do anything improper, it needs to be fixed.
Correct.
And the standards are immensely strict. I believe in the federal standards, they can only have one error per every 250,000 votes. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Wait, I didn't know that.
You can only have one error for 250,000 votes. That means with 1 million votes, you can only have 4 errors. And we have 2,100,000, so we can only have 8 1/4.
Okay, so I can tell you we have more than that in errors.
Now, tell us in your canvassing, and when she was here the very first time, she came in with books. We had to have a bunch of big, strong guys come in carrying these books. I mean, the desk was just piled this high, I think, with and you had affidavits and so forth. Tell us about it. You had people. Well, you tell us, because I know the story, and I'm gonna bark it out.
So there's 2 issues. One issue is all these people on the voter rolls that should not be there, and then everyone asks, well, did they vote? If they didn't vote, who cares? Well, the answer is that some of them did vote, and that's sort of the purpose of the canvassing, to basically see if they actually exist at that residence. So what I can tell you that I wasn't able to tell you back when I was on this show for the first time is that there are actually people that vote from residences that have never lived in that residence, and yet we see votes cast for them via mail-in ballot, not just in 2020, but 2018, 2016, and going back in time. So then when we canvass, we ask that, the person who lives at that residence, did you happen to receive an extra mail-in ballot for that person that does not live at your residence? We call them, Bobby Piton calls them phantom voters. And then the person says, no, that person never lived here. I don't even know who they are. Then the antenna really goes up. Okay, well, how did they cast a mail-in ballot when a mail-in ballot was never sent to this address? And I'm not saying that there are tens of thousands of those cases, but there's hundreds of those. And then you have hundreds of maybe a dead voter, and then you have hundreds of double voters, and then you have hundreds where voting records have been modified, or their birth date suddenly changes, or their registration date on their voting record changes. I mean, and when you add all that up, what I say, it's like looking for 100,000 needles in 100,000 haystacks. It's hard work.
Well, I know, and I think this was some of your work, that we found that you found that there were almost 90 people that voted who claimed the county recorder's office was their home?
I don't know if that number's 90, but there are people registered to vote and voting from government buildings. Actually, it's
Saying that that's their
when we
residence.
take all the government buildings, it's more than 90. So of course, what do you think the left does? Now, this woman, I believe she was Republican, but I think she was leftist. She calls me up and she says, "Well, they're the protected address voters." And long story short, no. These were not the protected address voters, but they try to spin it to make you think and to make you start questioning yourself, and then they'll call me up. Your data is not good. And then I just got the other day. Well, the data was hacked, so you're looking at the hacker's data, and I'm like, no, we have snapshots in time from October till today. So we're getting so good at asking for data that now before on public information requests, and a lot of times we have to pay good money for this data, and we're getting all right. So now our requests have gotten so good that they've come back to us and they're like, well, we've got to talk to our attorneys before we can turn this over to you. So now I know we're good.
One of my big complaints is the attorneys. And I think, we all know, and this was one of the big things that went on where the county said, well, we have the authority, and the state said, well, they have the authority. But we all know that the county is a subdivision of the state of Arizona.
Correct.
And so there could be no question that plenary responsibility was the Senate and the House of Representatives by far. They're the highest calling of legal legislation in the state of Arizona. And to argue that point and have to go to a court to see that that's done seems futile. I don't understand.
It was running out the clock.
I mean, all you have to do is just read Civics 101, in high school or grade school, and you know the answer, and yet you'll have judges that will play with this, and you wonder where they went to. And folks, I don't think most of our politicians have a clue about our Constitution. It's very, very, it's a simple document, and yet there's terminologies in there that people just don't understand. When we were at dinner the other night, one of our friends was passing out some little constitutions and so forth.
Yeah.
That's this little booklet here. And it was kind of a surprise to me. Somebody had told me to look at this. When it talks about the United States, it's a little U. It says United, small u, States, capital S. Think about that for a minute. The United States is not the country. We think of ourselves as the United States of America, but the United States are the 50 states united. And we're the sovereigns. It's not the federal people. And yet they keep getting themselves into this. So far, they haven't interjected themselves directly, but I don't think there's any question that Perkins Coie is retained by the Democrat Party, who now controls the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So they are arguing for the administration, my opinion.
Yeah.
So, any rate.
Well, can I talk about HR 1 for a second there?
Please
Okay.
do. That is
So HR 1 is a complete travesty. And marketing-wise, what do they call that bill? Like the People's Bill or something?
Well, they're always smart. Yeah, the people's, I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds like, it's something
it's
that I
something.
really
It's something
wanna-
that sounds so fancy, right? But anyway, that would be a nightmare, and that would be basically taking away state rights. And voting definitely should be left up to the states. There's no question. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I got a call from a legislator. It doesn't matter who it was, and he or she said, if you had to give me two things, and this was the first time a legislator asked me this question, and I was headed into a board meeting, but I'm going to tell you, whoever that legislator was, I want to thank that person. He or she knows who he or she is, and And I was proud, and I said, okay, there's not 2 things, there's 7 things. And I had to be in the board meeting, so I just rattled them off. And I said, number 1 day, 1 vote. Let's make it a state holiday. Why not? I mean, everyone loves a holiday, right?
Yes.
Especially the people who don't like to work. But anyway,
They
one
already have a
vote,
holiday.
or 1 vote, or 1 day, 1 vote. And then the next thing, no machines. Get rid of the machines. Right now, nobody trusts the machines. And I'm not even going to go through brands. It doesn't matter what machine it is.
Exactly.
So 1 day, 1 vote, no machines, because I want everyone to memorize this. And then the next one is no mail-in ballots. Yeah, I just said it. No mail-in ballots. And I'm going to get this.
And no early voting.
No early vote. That's the 1 day. And then the absentee ballot is for the military, the disabled. I mean, maybe we should make them have a doctor's note. But anyway, the military, the disabled, and those professions who take them out of state or out of country. If you're in the state, you know what? On this state holiday, you can make it down to your voting poll. But anyway, so I got that. 1 day, 1 vote, no machines, no mail-in ballots. And now here's the really big one, okay? Because I'm told by legislators, there's no way we can count all the ballots if we do a hand count. Well, guess what? If the state of Arizona and every other state around the country reduces their precinct sizes, and that means what it used to be, approximately 1,000 registered voters per precinct. What's happened in Arizona over the last 20 years is we grew our precincts from 1,000 registered voters to up to 8,000 registered voters. So then that's where you're going to have your long line. So if we get it back down to 1,000 registered voters, that means 1,000 people in your community are registered to vote, and then they say, oh, we don't have enough facilities for people to vote at that are willing to allow them to vote. Well, we have plenty of government buildings between, when I say government, anything that the taxpayers pay for. We have post offices, we have schools, we have libraries, and then there's the private churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, any of those. I mean, and then the next thing they say, well, we don't have enough people to work it. I'm going to let you know right now that everyone in Arizona will now work the polls after they've seen what happened in 2020. Okay, so I'm going to just repeat this because this is really important. 1 day, 1 vote, no machines, no mail-in ballots, smaller precincts, hand counts. And then you ready for this? The polls in Arizona close at 7. Those hand counts are due by 9 p.m., and then all the results must be announced before midnight. It's that simple. And then, of course, strong voter ID is important. We have a new driver's license, which, you can't fly without the new driver's license. I mean, not right now, but that's, every time I've been to the post office pre-COVID, they're telling me, your driver's license is not going to be good anymore after October. Like every single TSA agent told me that. And then, of course, some people don't fly, there are government IDs issued all the time at no charge. So this thing about having you don't need ID to vote. Well, I need ID if I want to buy cigarettes. Fortunately, I never smoked. If I want to buy liquor, if I want to fly, if I want to do, you need ID for everything.
Cash a check?
To cash a check. Yeah, I need ID. I literally have to have my driver's license on me at all times because I don't know when I'm going to be asked for it. It's just part of life. I don't.
And yet the opposition, the other side, will say it's voter suppression. And I keep thinking to myself, and they talk about minorities. And this is one of the things, because I think our side really loves minority people because we treat them the same as we treat majority people.
Absolutely.
You live by the same standards. It's ludicrous, in my opinion, to go out and say, gee, you're a minority and you're probably not smart enough to be able to get an ID.
Right. It's very offensive to people.
I think so.
Right. No, it is. It is. And they've done polls, and yeah, it's offensive to say because you're a minority you don't have an ID. Completely offensive.
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is basically not only going to have the votes counted by 9 p.m., but we're going to have the results on Election Day by midnight.
You remember in 2018, many of you may not, but let me just refresh you, and if you're from out of state, you won't know. On election night, the Republicans won everything.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, over the days, votes began to come in. I really think that there was a lot of hanky-panky going on back then.
It was a practice run.
Yeah, it was a practice run, and there was a lot of this hanky-panky stuff. And it was really troubling because slowly but surely, and then remember Fontes, bless his heart, we had emergency voting centers.
Yeah.
The question was, what was the emergency? There was no emergency.
No, but he opened emergency voting centers in
heavily
heavily Democrat areas. Right?
Districts to get out more Democrat voters. And I'm 100% agreement with you. If you remember this last year, some states began their early voting right after Labor Day, which was September, early September.
Ridiculous.
2 months ahead of the election. And that was troubling because so many things happened within that 2 months that you could not foresee if you voted when the polling opened up. One of them was Biden's son and all of the nonsense that he was playing with. People didn't know that. And we go from voting day to voting week to voting month to voting season.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
The larger the window, the more opportunity there is for the 5-letter F word, fraud.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that's so sad. And I love this country.
I do too.
It's been very, very good to me. I take my responsibility to help steer this country, and I know you do. I've been doing it forever. You have too, because that's what our founders challenged us to do. I've given you a republic if you can keep it.
Every time I hear the national anthem, I get goosebumps, and sometimes I even want to cry.
I do too. I was watching something yesterday about the American Civil War and how it was one of the issues, of course, was to, as Lincoln said, a new birth of freedom, which is the way our founders saw the country. All men are created equal, a new birth of freedom. We got rid of slavery. And, well, we should have. And yet it's the party that had the slaves that is telling people that the Republican Party are the parties that are trying to hold minorities down. Not true. It's always been the Democrat Party.
That's correct.
And it still is. The thing is, quite frankly, I'm going to tell you my opinion. Now they've shifted this from, well, we used to be prejudiced against black people. Now we're prejudiced against white people. Well, why are you prejudiced at all?
Right.
White or black.
We all bleed red.
Yes, that's right. And so I get very, very upset with this whole notion. I did something that I'm going to tell a story because it's cute, but I suppose somebody's going to criticize it. Coca-Cola, be less white. Well, I never quite understood how I could be less white, but when I saw that, I saw it on Facebook, so I said, I'm doing my best. I'm working on my tan right now. But Liz, here's the thing that is something that everybody needs to think about. I'm white through no fault of my own. Okay? God chose the color of my skin. I got blue eyes. God chose the color of my eyes. I'm right-handed. God chose whether I'm right-handed. I'm male. God chose that. So why should any man be angry with me for what I choose or for what I am? But God also gave us one other thing, and that's brain power. Now, if you are a bigot, it's not because you are brown-skinned or blue-eyed or right-handed or left-handed, male, female. It's because somewhere in your brain you've come up with something that was not connected right, and you've come across prejudice against certain groups of people based on color and not their individual selections.
Correct.
And if there's anything that I could do, I wish that in the entire United States, that's one of the things we could teach people, is you're not responsible for your physical appearance, but you are responsible for your mental acumen.
That's correct.
And so, news break right here. Anyway, that's just how I feel. I've tried to think about a lot of these things over the years, and it's really another amazing thing. I got a letter today from John Black or Representative Blackman,
Okay.
Walt Blackman, and Walt is a black man,
Yes.
and God bless him. He was in the United States Army. He served for approximately 22 years. Rose to the rank of a sergeant in the tank battalions, United States military Army tanks. I mean, that's quite a. I wouldn't want to get in front of one of those. I wouldn't want to even try to drive one of those things. But at any rate, now here's a man that has served his country well. He has become a Republican. He is a conservative, and yet one of the things they tried to do, they tried to take him out. Democrats tried to take him out in his district. And the way they did that in California, they have what they call the top two voting. So you get a whole bunch of people there, and it's the top two vote getters that will run in the general election.
Right.
So it's possible that they have two Democrats that are running for one seat, rather than a Republican, a Democrat, Libertarian, Green, whatever else would be running. So in that case, the Democrats, know, well, we're going to have a Democrat win the election. So what they did, they took up funding and sent it here to defeat our legislators, where there was a Republican, and they did that against Walt Blackman. Mm-hmm. And why did they do it against Walt Blackman? Because they don't want a black man to be a conservative. They were willing to take out a black man because of his political views were different from theirs. And that is sinful, in my opinion.
It is.
And, I don't know. Tell you what, Democrats come up with the neatest things. They come up with this really neat names for things. And I wanted to address this with you. Protect Democracy Project. Isn't that a nice name?
It's a pretty name.
Yeah. And what are they doing? They came here, okay, with 3 different law firms. One of them we've talked about, and that's Perkins Coie. The second one was Coppersmith Brockman.
Yep.
Now, you know who Coppersmith was, right?
They're on the letterhead of the nasty letter they sent to, I think it was either Cyber Ninjas or Karen Fan.
And Coppersmith used to be a congressman. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, in your side of town.
Oh, wow.
Yes, many, many, many years ago. It was I believe he only served one term, and he was a Democrat, which was really amazing. A Democrat took a seat over there, and that was Coppersmith. So he was a lawyer, and he firmed. And the other one, I don't know this one. This is Barton Mendez Soto. I don't know who they are. But at any rate, these are 3 law firms that are being involved with all these lawsuits.
Yeah, it's rumored that there's over 70 attorneys here to stop the audit.
I had read that, and I quite frankly, I believe there's more. And I wanted to give you some numbers just for your, and you might know these. You might have even been the one that came up with these. In 2016, we had Hillary Clinton and we had Donald Trump. Trump carried Maricopa County 797,000 votes to 702,000 votes. Okay, so he won. Okay, in 2020, Trump took the county 9. Now listen to the numbers. He had 79. This time he had 99,000. Okay, votes, and Biden had 1,040,000 votes. During that time, the population of Maricopa County increased by only 5%. But the vote increased by 40%.
Right. Okay, wait. I just want to say, you said 99,000 here. So in 2000, Trump had 995,000. I just want to correct that. Okay.
Okay.
And then Biden had over 1 million.
Yeah, over 1 million.
Right.
And so what we have here, if our population increased, in other words, we had a lot of people that must not have voted in 2016 if we had a 40% increase with only a 5% population increase.
Yeah.
And that's when I look at the numbers, remember, being an auditor, I tend to look at numbers and say, what happened? How could this be possible? What things would have had to have taken place to make these numbers what they are?
Based on the work I've done, they added phantom voters. It's an honest reality.
That's where I'm heading. This does not appear to be logical.
It's sad. This is really sad.
And on a national basis, it's even worse.
Yep.
Because there were like 212 million people that were registered to vote. We know that Trump got about 75 million of that.
You mean over 80 million, but okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the numbers that, I'm tending to agree with you. But what I'm saying is that, with the number of people registered to vote, the number of people that did vote, and we know what Trump got, so the result is that Biden could not have gotten more than 65 million votes, but he got 80 million. How did he do that?
I don't know.
I mean, numbers-wise, like I say, I'm a numbers guy. I want somebody to explain that to me, and they can't. And we have about 5 minutes left.
I know.
We have about 5 minutes left. Any particular things that you want?
Well, I just want to say to that, and why the Supreme Court can't see through this is just beyond me. Beyond me.
Well, let's visit that just for a moment. and here again, in the case of Texas versus Pennsylvania. Okay. The court of original jurisdiction in that matter is the Supreme Court, because you can't ask a Texas court to make a decision that affects Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Nor can you make Pennsylvania court make a decision that affects Texas. So the only court that could do it is a non-jurisdictional court, such as the Supreme Court. They didn't do that. Okay, they said, well, you don't have standing. Well, that's ridiculous. Everybody has standing. Standing only means that did you lose something by having the decision go the way it did? Were you hurt in any way?
Right.
And we all were hurt. I don't care which way you went. I mean, even if you won, you still were hurt if it was not on the up and up. So the bottom line on all of this stuff is the Supreme Court should have handled this. They did not. I have another theory about the court system, and I wish somebody would deal with this one day. Courts cannot make law. They do, but they cannot make law, according to only the Congress and the state legislatures can make law. And I would love to see when the Supreme Court makes it, they hand down what? An opinion. They don't hand down a law. They hand an opinion. And I would love to see, and one of our presidents, I think it was Zachary Taylor, did this one time. The court said this, and they said, this is our opinion. He said, well, I have a different opinion, so pretty much screw you. But I'd like to see somebody do that someday and say, well, you don't have the, and it's like, Liz, it's like most people will say that abortion's the law of the land. Why? Because the Supreme Court said it was. No, they didn't.
They issued an opinion.
They issued an opinion. I don't think it's legal myself, but there are people that do.
So I really do believe the Supreme Court has not made opinions. They basically kicked back all these cases. I do believe because they feared rioting in this country. I really do believe that they felt that the left would have rioted.
Oh, yeah, and they were probably right.
So
but what did anybody do when they were doing this last year?
Nothing. So I do have one really fast call to action. If we want to see this new judge recuse himself before 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, call the following number and ask the judge to please recuse himself, and that number is 602-372-2925. Again, 602-372-2925, and ask Honorable Daniel Martin, to please recuse himself.
And the reason is because
his
did work
affiliation with Perkins
Coie.
Yes.
Which he should have done.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even think this needs to be in the courts personally, but that's another story. Liz, we sure appreciate you, and support Liz any way you can. When you see the name Liz Harris,
thank you.
Respect that. She's great.
Thanks.
So We'll see you. Thank you for coming on, and keep us informed. We always want to know because you're always in the know.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.